don't know if that's showing you live in your channel. I'm not getting your live stream.
Okay, I will need to. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We'll have to go as is.
Don't know if he is, but we'll keep our eye out. Welcome everybody. Nice to see you.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the crypto. So thank you for taking the time to be on the call today, as usual. And as usual, I mean, I can see most people I have seen before, so you know exactly how it works. So hopefully we're not going to have any funny games today. Let me just put some light so you can see me, and we can cover some really interesting topics. So as usual, you know, we're going through the news first, and then we open the room for question and answers. Okay. We should be able to control the room a little bit better this week, so we don't have the surprise that we had last week. So you know, at the moment you're all being muted. And when it's time to ask for the questions, then raise your hand and we'll unmute you. We'll have to unmute ourselves one by one. Okay. So slightly different from usual. Okay, but let me go straight away into some news. Obviously, most of you would have followed you know, the first session from Roger yesterday. It was really exciting, with so much emphasis put on the metaverse, and probably has given you kind of like a glimpse of what the future might look like. You know, we're seeing, although some of these things might seem very far away in the future, the pace of improvement is really going, you know, carrying on very fast. So what seemed just like a distant dream, you know, a year ago, is now a very possible reality. And even kind of, I've been surprised, although I've been talking to you guys, and I've been you know, holding rooms from the start of the year. The pace of adoption has surprised even me. Okay, because you know, this has been the fastest technology in terms of adoption ever. So faster than the mobile phone, faster than the internet. And we were going at the beginning of the year at you know, 2.5 times the speed of internet adoption. But that growth is actually even accelerated throughout the year. So you know, just listen to what Roger was saying yesterday, because it won't take long before we actually get there. Okay, let me now share my screen, and we can start going into some news. Okay, first of all, let me start with the market. And we always, you know, all of us will have heard would have followed Bitcoin and generally the whole crypto market. As you know, if we look at the last few days, let me make it a little bit bigger so you can see better. Okay, this is a daily chart. So you know, if we looking from where we were a week ago, so the market has lost again. You know, we've gone down from 69,000 on the 10th of November, and now it's kind of like 1 month later, and we're down to 48. We went as low as 42,000. So there has been a very panicky drop. We can see here last week, and it actually happened between Friday and Saturday. You know, last week. And you know, there are a few reasons for that drop. Some of them are technical, and some of them are kind of a macro reason. The first one that we should we should always start with is something that we've already talked, for several months. This is one of the biggest developers in China, and it has defaulted on its debt. Now, this is a multi-billion debt. If you're thinking about, this tranche in particular is 82.5 million, but the total debt is several billion. The fact that they defaulted on this debt will affect the world economy at large. Okay, because obviously there are many banks all over the world. They are participated in loans to this corporation, and so as we absorb this default, it has an effect on markets all across the world, not just crypto, but also share markets, has an effect on the banking sector and on the financial sector as a whole. When you combine this with the fear of the Omicron variant that we've had around the same time, there's been basically the consensus has been that this will cause a contraction, of the financial activity across the world, and so many kind of like risk-on sectors, and this including crypto, have seen a contraction. Okay, excuse me. Now, what it's important to understand, though, and this is kind of keep repeating this every week, is that the underlying narrative hasn't changed one bit. Okay, so where we were 2 weeks ago, the same reason why we are in crypto, why the reason why crypto is being adopted at such a fast pace, those reasons haven't changed. The adoption rate hasn't changed, and everything is carrying on as normal. What is not carrying on as normal is price. But this is what we need to understand. And one thing is the technology and the work that's going on to get this technology adopted all across the world. And one thing is the price of the protocols that are using this technology. Okay, they are creating this technology, and the price is determined by demand and supply. So we are going to see this huge growth and drop. But if we zoom out and start taking some time, when we see this, we see everything. We see these red days like we're seeing it today. I mean, look at CoinGecko. We see the whole market, and when we start scrolling down, you can see everything is red. So everything is gone down in price, and sometimes by double figures as well, 10%, 9%, 11%, and so on. So when we see this, it's important to zoom out and start saying, okay, yes, the whole market may lose maybe 4.7% in the last 24 hours, but where are we come from? So what's happened in the last 12 months, for example? And if we look at the global market cap, this is the total crypto market. And if I click on that, we're going to be able to show where we were a little while ago. And that this to put things into perspective a little bit. So this is the whole thing from 2000. It goes back to 2014. Okay, but just look at the last 12 months. Okay, so where were we in? Today is the 10th of December. Where were the 10th of December 2020? So if you can see the price or the total market value on the 10th of December 2020 was $558 billion. And where we are today, you can see up here, is 2.35 trillion. Okay, so the market has grown like 550, 1100, and it's grown by 4 times. Okay, from 550 to 2 trillion tree. And yes, we have dropped about 30% from the top when we went over 3 trillion, but we're still way ahead from where we started from 1 year ago. So anything, especially in new technology like this, doesn't go up just in a linear movement. There's going to be a lot of chop. Okay, so there is going to be, fast growth. There are going to be fast drops, and it is kind of like the nature of the beast. Okay, so as you can see here, you already had quite a few drops. Look at this one, look at this one, look at this one. So this is quite kind of like significant drops already, and within the last 12 months. But generally, we have grown from 500 billion to 2.3 trillion, even with the drop that we had in the past couple of weeks. Okay, so always remember, when in doubt, zoom out and you get a better perspective. Now, to make you understand, when you're thinking, why this is still relevant, why crypto will not go to zero, okay? Then you got to understand the wider picture. So a couple of things that I wanted to show you on the macro movement that are happening, okay? This is an article from Bitcoin magazine. So it's talking about countries are leaving the US dollar standard, okay? And ignore the last line, they need a Bitcoin strategy. That obviously they are a little bit biased on the Bitcoin. But this is what is interesting, is that this is talking about trade between Russia and India. So they're doing some arms trade. Now, traditionally, all international trade has been settled in dollars, generally. So what's happening between Russia and India is that now they are settling their trade directly in rubles and rupees, as opposed to dollars. So this is very significant, because in a way, what is propping up the dollar as a currency for the US is the fact that many of the dollars are used as a reserve, outside of the US itself, and that in a way is financing their activity in the US. Okay, because if all the US dollars were repatriated in the US, then we would have really hyperinflation in the US, and we would have riots in the street. Okay, but obviously this is not something that is going to happen overnight, but it's something that we are seeing, something like this, the first signs of central banks, about nation states that are trying to decouple from the dollar. And we could obviously we're in crypto, so we always talk about El Salvador. El Salvador already is an example of this, and is an example why, apart from, we're looking at India and Russia. They're already two really huge, big countries on the world stage, and they can make their own policies. But for a small country like El Salvador, that is like a pin drop on the world map, it's a different thing. Being able to control their economy, it's a different thing altogether. And when we have a look at some countries in Southern America, like for example here in Venezuela and with other countries we're looking at, Bolivia, for example, and Colombia, Panama, Argentina. Now, this is talking about one particular crypto reserve currency called Reserve, as opposed, that is now being used as if this is a stable coin. Okay, and why is it important? Why am I talking about this today? Is because this is the practical use why cryptocurrency is changing lives at the grassroots level. Thinking about, if you were in Venezuela, you were paid in local currency. This local currency is devaluing at a rate of, literally in front of your eyes, losing percentage points every single day. So what many people are doing to manage to still live and hold some value somehow, they're exchanging their local currency for this stable coin. And then so they keep their value not in Venezuelan dollars, but they're keeping their value in the stable coin. And then when they go to the supermarket, what they do, they transfer some of the stable coin to their bank account, and then they spend it straight away. Anything that is not spent, it goes back into stable coin, because otherwise, if they keep it in their wallet, it just loses value in front of their eyes very, very quickly. Okay, so this is the reason why crypto is important, is giving people an alternative to local government control of the money supply, and especially where the local governments are not being able to do a proper job of it. Okay, so we're not talking just about big boys games here, about people that want to make money to become rich. But we are talking about people living their day-to-day life, and in a way that they're having to find some alternatives, because what is being supplied by the people in power is not good enough. So we see this in Venezuela, Argentina. We see in, for example, in Africa as well. If you look at Zimbabwe, for example, is another country that has similar problems, and people are finding alternative solutions. People are writing, basically, they are trading in Zimbabwe IOUs. So shops, instead of giving you change, because people are now paying for goods, instead of paying with Zimbabwean dollars, they're paying with US dollars. But there is a scarcity of currency to do that. So people, instead of giving change in the shops, they give IOUs. So, you got $3 IOU, and then you can spend it another time, and then you can exchange it with other people, and so they're creating their own currency. So you can see the need of an easy way of exchanging value, and something that you can control just simply by having, a device like your phone. So you don't even need to have a bank account. It makes this, it gives everybody, the little guy on the street, a solution to not only keep the value, but also to store it away, save if they can save anything, and get a return on that saving that is comparable to what in the Western world hedge funds have access to. So this is kind of like a revolution from the bottom up, and this is why it is important, why I'm talking about it every week, because you need to understand that we're not in this game simply to make money, because we invest in these things that are going up. We buy Shiba Inu and will make us all rich. This is making a difference. This technology can change the world. We're talking about rewriting the rules of society, and these are rules that often they've been in place since before the Second World War. So there are things that were written 80, 90, 100 years ago. I mean, the banking system that we're using now is still using the same system for transferring amounts between one country and another that were used 70 years ago when things were done on paper, okay, and they were done by telegraph or telex. So obviously, when you think about it now, most of the money that's stored in banks is not stored in a physical format. It's stored on a ledger. So they're entries on a ledger, a series of 1 and 0s on ledgers. So why can you justify to me why it takes 4 days for a transaction to, if I send money from the UK to Australia, another place, it might take so long for the transaction to register in both accounts, when literally the record is stored electronically and it just happens in a fraction of a second. Okay, so these are the reason why, there is an improvement in efficiency, an improvement in customer experience as well, in many different sectors. And this is why the reason why crypto is being adopted. This is the reason why it is having so much success, because it is improving things for everybody. And the other really great innovation is that the value that's being generated is not being taken away by the banks, by the central government, because, by the way, if you didn't realize it, there is a price for you to use the currency, which is called currency inflation. So every year you are paying, at the moment, if you live in the US, you are paying an unspoken tax of about 14% a year for the past 10 years, which is basically the extra money that's been printed, is the value in the money that you have in your wallet. Okay, so that's the price for you to use the dollar, for example, as a medium of exchange. And what's the price instead of using crypto for the same, to make the same transactions you would do with the dollars? It's a really tiny fraction of that. And all the difference, whatever is left between the 14% and the maybe 1% or whatever that you pay in crypto, is the value that is retained in the community instead of being siphoned away by the intermediaries. Okay, so this is the real revolution on the ground floor that's happening with crypto. So let's move on now. Let's move on to a different thing, because I want to get to your questions as well. I don't want to talk forever. This is another big thing that's been talked about this week is the talks between, in the US House of Representatives now, where several leaders from some central exchanges, from some stable coins, and from Stellar as well, were invited to Congress to have a discussion, basically to really educate the congressmen about the intricacy of this technology. So we've seen some really interesting exchanges going on. But also, we're trying to understand some of the because some of the regulation is being put in place is from people that really don't understand what's happening. We're creating a situation where there are things that are perfectly legal in other countries that are illegal in the US. And so what is happening? What is happening is that they are creating an environment that is pushing the innovation away from the US into other countries. Okay, so what they are worried about, the congressmen, because at the end of the day, they want to make sure they bat for the US. They want to make sure that their country is at the forefront of this. And they are, for the first time, we're seeing by the questions that they are asking and the type of conversation that they are having, is that they are realizing that this is a technology that is going to be the dominant technology of the future. And they are really worried that the US is being left behind, because at the moment they are. Because so many things are not possible to be done in the US, then other countries are moving ahead because they see things in a different way, and they've become focal point for the development of this technology. Okay, so I think that now there's going to be a much more fruitful discourse between the cryptocurrency industry and the government, and there's been a lot of lobbying. All of a sudden, there's been mobilized from the cryptocurrency industry now, and they are actually fighting on the front line and going against, even at the election level, they're going against many congressmen that don't see cryptocurrency as the future, and they will fund the opposite candidate that's more pro crypto. So I think it's going to be within a few years, definitely before the next elections, we're going to see a real change in discourse about crypto, because obviously the congressmen are all worried about their job in a way. So they want to make sure if they have a majority of the population that wants them to find a way to get them to use crypto, then that is going to happen, because otherwise they're just going to lose they're going to lose their seat in somebody else's favor. So this instead is from the UK. Okay, the UK has taken a really hard line at the moment against crypto, and this is from the FCA CEO, which is the regulator in the UK, and they're really saying, well, people need to understand that this is kind of like the Wild West. If they want to deal in crypto, there's going to be no compensation at all. At the moment, the FCA is still if people have been say defrauded or their asset, they still have some recourse to the FCA, but they want to stop that completely. So they want to stop recourse to the Financial Services Compensation Scheme at all for people that have lost sums when dealing with crypto. Okay, so again, what will this do, and what if this is really damaging the UK industry? UK has been at the forefront of technology growth and investment in the past decade, but now they've been really hurt by this attitude as well, by the regulators and the authorities towards crypto. On what we were talking about before, talked about last week as well, the Bitcoin ETF, spot ETF. Now, there's been many applications, and this WisdomTree is one of the investment organization that has seen the spot Bitcoin ETF application being rejected. So they now corrected the application and represented it. So there is a lot of support towards for a Bitcoin spot ETF to be adopted. At the moment, ETF and exchange traded fund. So what would happen is that at the moment, all the exchange traded funds in the US are futures ETF. So these funds will buy futures in the market, but there isn't a spot ETF where these funds will have to buy Bitcoins on the open market. And the moment that one of these funds is approved, that means that for all the investment that they managed to collect, they then are going to have to go out on the open market and buy Bitcoin. So what would that do for the price if there is a large buyer that buys and holds Bitcoin? It creates obviously more demand, and then once they bought it, it will restrict the supply as well. Okay, so the reason why suppose it hasn't been adopted, hasn't been approved yet, because they are worried that by approving it, they will help the price of Bitcoin to increase rapidly. Okay, although this is what we're talking about, the difference between governments as well. So Fidelity, which is one of the largest investors in the world as an investment manager, they couldn't get the spot ETF approved in the US, so they created one in Canada. Just across the border, everything's fine. In the US, it's not possible. So, and capitals are very easy to move. So where do you think that people will invest? From many pensions accounts, as long as something is regulated, you can invest in different investments. So a lot of capitals will find their way to Canada or to Germany, where there is another one. So I think there is going to be again a lot of pressure as well on the SEC to approve one of those. Okay, next. So this is an example of a congresswoman, because you have to report your investment as a member of parliament. So the Marie Newman actually bought Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust shares. So this would have been unthinkable even just a few months ago, where everybody was against cryptocurrency. Now there are examples of people in the actual House of Representatives or in the Senate actually not just talking positively about cryptocurrency, but even investing their own money into it. Okay, so things are moving at a fast pace. This is why I'm bringing it up. Okay, let me close this page. Okay. So the other, oh, sorry, no, I didn't want to cancel that. Let me bring it up again. So I canceled something that I didn't want to cancel. The other bit of news that it's really important to mention today is that WhatsApp, and I suppose most of you will have WhatsApp on your phone, now is launching crypto payments in the US. Okay, so you'll be able to pay. Let me see if there is a thing in this article. Excuse me. So soon you will be able to send crypto payments directly from the chat in your WhatsApp app. Okay, so obviously WhatsApp, for those of you that don't know it, it's owned by Facebook. So obviously they're talking about these crypto payments, and it's powered by Novi, which is the Novi digital wallet, which is the Facebook crypto wallet, has been trialed. But again, what will that mean for the crypto market in general? Once this is rolled out, there's over 2 billion people that have WhatsApp, on their phone. So over 2 billion people that would find it then a solution, very easy to start paying, transferring cryptocurrency through the app without having to download any particular specific cryptocurrency wallet, because it's going to be integrated within WhatsApp. Obviously, it's not what we are proponing here because it's a big company that owns all this system. So ideally, we want to use a decentralized way of doing the same thing. But I'm just mentioning because in terms of numbers, this is going to be huge in terms of you enabling, around 2 billion people across the world to access the technology. Then, if this is going to be dominant in the future, or if people move to another way of doing it, then we'll see. But it is going to be significant anyway, and it is going to allow many people that are not into crypto already to become, to be able to use it to transfer value to their friends, to pay for things, and so on. Okay, now let's go into just a couple of things before we take questions. Talking about some particular cryptos. So there's some news about Polygon, some about Cardano, some about gosh, I'll think about the name in a second. The reason why I wanted to talk about Polygon is it's kind of like it's been quite impressive recently in one, developing the ecosystem, and two, investing in zero knowledge scaling solution. So they just announced they bought the Mir project, which is another zero knowledge scaling project for $400 million. So the zero knowledge rollup is something that will is thought that will pretty much solve the high cost of transactions over Ethereum, obviously as a layer 2 scaling solution. Okay, so in this case, this kind of technology becomes, with the more users that come on board, it will become even cheaper. So the more people use it, the cheaper it becomes. And it has the potential of taking the transaction layer completely away from the main chain of Ethereum. and if we might imagine a future in which Ethereum represents the settlement layer, and so the security layer in a way that everybody wants to have the finality on, but the actual transactions that you need for day-to-day applications will happen somewhere else. So will happen somewhere else, and then will be bunched up and recorded securely on chain. Okay, and Polygon, out of the all the layer 2 scaling solutions that there are for Ethereum, is the one that's invested more heavily into this particular technology. So it would be, if everything works out, because we're not quite there yet, but they will really be well poised to take advantage of this technology when it rolls out. Okay, moving on to Cardano, and this again is significant. What is ERC20? For those of you that don't know, ERC20 is the standard for Ethereum tokens. Okay, so Cardano now has developed a converter that's being tested as we speak onto the testnet, so that project could be able to move their tokens from Ethereum blockchain to the Cardano blockchain and vice versa. Okay, the first project to try this is SingularityNet with the AGIX token, and they're actually testing this capability now on the testnet. But once it is up and running, then it will be seamlessly be possible to have the same functionality that for these tokens that is at the moment on Ethereum, but on top of that you get the extra functionality that is only on Cardano. So the tokens will exist in both, would be cross-chain, so they will exist in both blockchain, but from what they're saying, they really interested more on the Cardano activity, because the programming of language of Cardano will allow SingularityNet to do a lot more on Cardano than they can do on Ethereum. Okay, but this is important because it creates an easy bridge, an easy doorway for projects that are already on Ethereum to port onto Cardano with very little pain of having to rewrite everything. Okay, so it is a big deal, and you will see this then because many projects as well, many Cardano projects are already released tokens that on the Ethereum blockchain, and they will then be porting over all their tokens once this is activated. Instead on the Polkadot side, I mean, we've been talking about the parachain auctions. So the parachain auctions have started on the 11th of November, but they'll still carry on going on for a while. So at the moment, there've been like 4 auctions, and this is now Parallel Finance that won the 4th parachain auction. But you're still in time to take part if you want to, because there's going to be a lot more of these auctions going on. So it is a way of you getting some free tokens if you're happy to hold your Polkadot and bond it for the duration of the parachain slot, which is generally about 2 years. Okay, but so you would have at the end of the 2 years, you will still have your Polkadot, and you'll have the new token you receive for supporting supporting the particular parachain. Each one has a different reward system. So you know, if you go into the details, for example, for this particular parallel finance, you will receive, you know, 25 para tokens per Polkadot that you have bonded to the project. Okay, so we will see how these tokens do, but there is a potential of them growing a lot faster than the corresponding Polkadot token. So you can get very good returns. Okay, so I think I'm done for the news, and I've overdone, you know, spoken for over half an hour. So I think it's time to then have some interaction and take some questions for you guys. Okay, so Duncan, do you have anything ready for me, or shall we?
No, there are a few questions, thankfully, already in the chat. Eric asks about mana and sand and your opinion of them as investments, or would there be a better way to invest into Metaverse and things like that? And actually, what we could do is combine this with Pierre's question, because Pierre says he still doesn't get his head around Decentraland, digital assets, NFTs. We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, when we were talking about handbags and you know, Gucci handbags and all that sort of thing. But a similar question, you know, can it be seen as an investment, or is it pure speculation? So maybe we are recapping on what we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, but you know, it seems to be a popular subject in the room.
So we're still talking about cryptocurrency as speculation then here, eh? So is this an investment or it is speculation? I mean, is any investment, you know, it's a very fine dividing line between, you know, if you call it investment or speculation, any investment is some sort of speculation. But what we're talking about, what differentiates different types of investment is kind of the risk factor. And generally, you know, investments that attract the higher returns are the ones usually they have the higher risk attached to them. So it's always, whenever you invest, there is always a trade-off between how much of your capital you risk and how much return you make. Okay, so that's why, you know, whenever we talk about crypto, I always say to invest in crypto money that you can afford to lose. Okay, so nobody wants to lose money. I agree. I don't want to lose money either. But if you start from that point of view, then you remove yourself from that emotion that you would have involved in everything you do if you invest money that you can't afford to lose. So if you have your, I don't know, for example, your rent money in crypto, then and you see everything come down 20%, you will be panicking. You're thinking, am I going to pay my rent this month? Because, you know, because I've lost 20% of my value. But if you're just taking as a, you know, part of what Mark always talks about with the investment pyramid, so we are talking about here about the top of the pyramid generally, and so you have to allow for that. You allow for that risk. When we're talking about Decentraland and Sandbox, for example, we are talking about Metaverse projects. So is it an investment or is it a speculation? Is any in crypto an investment or is it a speculation? So you got to think about not so much, you know, where are we now at this moment, and if I invest $100, will I get my $100 back, or will I get 1,000 back, or will I get $20 back? Okay, the way I reason when I am looking at crypto as an investment, and thinking, okay, where are we, you know, in the world, you know, with this technology? So I'm looking at Sandbox, I'm looking at Decentraland as Metaverse, and there are many more Metaverse projects, by the way. It's not just these two, but these are probably the two that are, well, you know, the biggest ones. Now, when you think about those, you think about where would we be as a species, you know, in 2 or 3 years' time. You know, there's in the news today. There was also, you know, Microsoft's what's his name? oh gosh, I can't remember the name, Bill Gates. Okay, Bill Gates was talking and was saying that, you know, within 2 years, all meetings will be done in the metaverse. Will be like 3D meetings in the metaverse. So no more of this kind of like Zoom sessions, but will be you'll be able to interact with people in the metaverse in a similar way that you would interact with them, you know, if you were face to face. So, you know, what would happen to, you know, Decentraland? What would happen to Sandbox? And here we've got to think about what would happen to your online presence, your online life, as in comparison to where you are today. So if I tell you, how much time do you spend on social media today compared to 15, 20 years ago? So if you spend 2 hours a day, let's say, and this is kind of like conservative estimate. I know there's people that kind of can detach themselves from Instagram and Facebook and, you know, TikTok and whatever else. You know, if you're spending 2 hours a day on social media, and this is for many people will be much more than that, then your online presence has a value to you. So what you do, the way you look online, is often, for many people, is more important than how they look in real life. So, you know, how much do you spend on yourself? You know, on I don't know, on entertainment or buying clothes or buying music, whatever, buying books. How much do you spend on that physically? And then think about, okay, if I don't see my friends because it's COVID and I can't go out to the pub because everything's closed, but we meet up in the metaverse, and this may soon happen, you know, is it important to me if I want to show off to my friends? I can't show them what I'm wearing, but I can show them my wearable NFT. So if I got a Gucci handbag, then I can show them the Gucci handbag. Or if I got a pair of you know, funky trainers, then I can show off with those. So, you know, as we spend money on brands to dress up physically, in the same way we would spend money on brands in the metaverse, because it's rather than talking about metaverse, let's talking about avatars. So we have a physical presence, but soon we will also have a digital presence. So we would have a digital representation of ourselves, and we will want to show off or to have the same emotions connected to that digital presence as we have to our normal self. So if we spend money on brands in the real world, well, we will spend money on brands in the digital world. And guess what? The brands, we want to be in the digital world, so it's convenient for us to buy their products. Okay, so you want to be on the metaverse and see things that are interesting to you. At the same point, the companies want to have a shop. So they need land. This is what the land, you know, when you talk about buying land or Sandbox or buying land on the central, something like that, this is what the land is going to be used for, because you need a land to have a building on it. And you need a building to have a shop, to have, or a concert hall, or whatever experience you want to give in the metaverse. Okay, so this is what is becoming valuable, because it is you know, where we will spend our time. And the bigger the community, the more valuable it is, because in the end, you know, the same way that you value a shopping mall, you value it by footfall, foot traffic. Okay, and the same thing online. If you get a metaverse where you get you know, 1,000 people visiting a day, will have a certain value. Another metaverse has got 1 million people visiting a day, will have a lot more value. Okay, so when I say add this project investment or the speculation, I would say they're both. Okay, because there is a obviously a speculative element, because you're hoping to increase the value of your investment, but at the same time, there is a long-term reason for this project to still be there in 5 years' time. There's not completely roll of the dice. Let's put it that way. So this is how I see it. So I hope that I have answered your question. And as usual, it's a very long answer, but I think sometimes it's needed. Okay, Duncan, let's get on to the next.
So it's a very interesting and expansive subject, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dana asked, when do we anticipate the Bitcoin ETF being approved?
We don't. We don't. We don't expect anything. And that's the thing. It's impossible to see what the SEC is going to do, because we don't know who their master is. Okay, that's the question. So why? I mean, and there are some noises that they might be taken to court, because they would have to explain in court their reason behind not approving a spot ETF when they're approving a futures ETF. And that would be difficult for them, because for now they have given no reason why. They just said no, we're not. I mean, this is denied. That's the only answer you get. So yeah, we'll see what happens. As I say, other countries are already approved, especially talking about the US. So the fact that there will be one in Canada, will be significant. There are in other countries across the pond, like Germany, for example. But then Canada is a lot more relevant for the US because it's close by, and I think it's a lot more accessible. Okay, do we have anything else on the written questions already?
Not from the room, but I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm in an echoey room today. From time to time, Luca, over the course of the last few months, since we've been here, one thing that sticks in my mind that I notice happens periodically, and sometimes we mention it before it happens, and sometimes we mention it afterwards. But as we're coming up to Christmas and New Year, I don't know if what I'm actually talking about is that certain points in the quarter, there's sort of wholesale activity because of options coming into maturity and being closed and all the rest of it. As we go into this seasonal period, is there anything that we need to look out for? Any specific, things to, because I always make my investments at exactly the wrong time, and I'm often wondering if it's because I miss out on simple things like that, because that has particularly happened to me, where I've sort of forgotten about that, and then a few days later you've said to me, oh yeah, well that's because of this, and I do sort of go, oh, if only I'd known that a couple of days ago, I'd save myself 100 quid or whatever. But yeah, so just putting it out there really, because we're coming into silly season again, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there have been some funny games. It's like obviously we have seen a lot of manipulation in the markets recently. Okay, and the way they do it is when sometimes it's almost like curious as some particular news come out at specific times, which they don't make sense. Like for example, I'll give you an example when here in the UK, the FCA announced on a Saturday morning that they were banning Binance. Okay, now there's nobody working at the FCA on Saturday morning, and so just ask yourself these questions. And the other question is the other drop was on Saturday morning again, last week. Between Friday night and Saturday morning, when the liquidity is at its lowest. So you have some macro signals, like obviously what happened with Evergrande and the Omicron variant. But at the same time, then you had a huge unexplained drop on the market of a big amount of tokens. And this all happened within 15 minutes, okay? So you couldn't have got on it unless you were up in front of the screen at that time. And even if you had been in front of the screen, I would channel anybody to understand what was going on and to react in time. Okay, and what tends to happen, because there's such a high volume going all of a sudden, often you are locked out of your accounts, because you find that this time you can't get on Binance, you can't get on Kraken or something else. Okay, so these are definitely orchestrated moves, and it's very difficult to understand when these are going to happen. Okay, but definitely they are trying to play on a narrative that's going on already and amplify it. Okay, so, and that's the thing, it's difficult to see exactly when they're going to play these games. Okay, but the one thing that comes to mind is that as this year in 2021 we had several institutions taking part, the thing that comes to mind is that many reporting is done at the end of the year. So for many companies, it's the end of the financial year, the 31st of December. So will they balance their books? Because they don't want to show cryptocurrency on the balance sheet. So will they sell it and then buy again in January? This is very possible. Very possible. Okay. So we don't know. We don't know what gains will happen in the long term. But obviously, there's a lot of unrealized gains, and it very much depends on if you are a small investor or if you're a company or something like this. Because the moment that you sell and you realize your gain, then you are liable for tax. So there is an incentive for small investors to not sell their cryptos back, keep it long term, especially if it's kind of like one of the big ones like Bitcoin or Ethereum. So we'll see what happens at the end of the year. But I do expect the last, the kind of around Christmas time to potentially for there to be a drop and then pick up again. I'm not giving
too much Christmas wine, and I've opened all my little envelopes. I don't know what's in my pocket. The other thing I wanted to ask you before I come to a point that Eric made, just a really, really quick question, and you might say, "Oh no, I don't know." On one of my trusted news sources, Twitter, I noticed during the week that people were saying that Link momentarily went to zero almost. And there were loads of people sharing charts with a big red line on it, and I think it was momentarily. Any idea how that happens?
Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services went down. Right. So as a lot of crypto projects went down momentarily because they're relying. And this is one of the big problems in crypto, by the way, as well, because they're relying on centralized, suppliers like Amazon. And there are projects that are trying to rebalance this. It would take time because to replace Amazon and Microsoft, and Google, which now have taken over basically the internet. It will take a while.
Okay, I've got a question to bring in at the end, but I just wanted to mention that Jonathan spoke about Eric Dano. Has a proposal for an AI profile picture generator in Cardano Catalyst. That's quite interesting. He showed the link there. And the point Eric's made about paying
what's the link, Jonathan? What's the link, Jonathan? Is because I've played around with one. Yeah, I know it's what's the name? Because I played around with one last week. I just wonder if you remember what the name was.
Yeah. He's linked it. It's a proposal, so the project's not released yet, but you can access it through Idea Scale, Cardano's project catalyst.
Yeah, Pavia on Cardano. There's kind of like the Metaverse that's launching. Yeah, they link to a website where you can upload a picture of yourself, and then they can create your avatar, and then you can put different things, and that will work on the Pavia as well.
Okay.
It's not a Cardano project. It's separate, but it works on Pavia as well.
Right.
That's why I was asking, because I played around with one last week. I created my avatar.
His example in the profile is if you're about to head into a game and you want to quickly morph your avatar, you have your face, but it's turned into a zombie, with slight UI effects, and then you can go and get on with your zombie killing or battling as appropriate. Because you're going to have to be careful with that turning up as your profile picture in your business LinkedIn page, but that'll be the future.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting, all these things, and now the Cardano is not enough. I know today that we have a cornucopia launching as well, launching their token. So that's interesting to see. It's a bigger Metaverse project. Metaverse play to earn gaming. It's going to be kind of anthology of Metaverses on Cardano. They already had the pre-seed round, and they're launching on a DEX today. Yeah, it's interesting to see how these projects can. Sometimes there aren't enough tokens to support all of them. Just as much as we can, but that's one of those that I was looking at. Cornucopia was interested in that, so I'm keeping an eye on them.
You know what you just said about, you know, you want to invest it. Sometimes when I do think, well, I'm looking, I've got a little chunk of money that I want to add to my portfolio, and I go through your spreadsheet, of course, and I go through my notes from things that have been said on the calls, and I always come away feeling like, you know, when you go to a dog's home, you can only take one or maximum two of them home with you, and really you just wish you could. And it's, I don't know, it really kills your buzz sometimes. But you do think, I'm coming back for you, maybe, you know, and I try to remember that. Eric raised in Switzerland, you can now pay your taxes in cryptos. And I suppose it goes back to some sort of standard crypto payment conundrums, doesn't it? You know, that fluctuations mean that, do they charge you how much your bill was due at the end of the year in dollars at the time that was worth in the crypto that they accept, or what do they do to hedge themselves against that, Luca? I would say, because it's going to be fluctuating, isn't it?
Yeah, what normally happens for these things is that obviously you got your tax that needs to be paid in Swiss francs. Okay, so the moment when you go and make the payment, you will have a screen that will say, okay, how are you paying? And if you say, well, I want to pay with Bitcoin, for example, then they will give you a conversion rate at that moment that is valid for, let's say, half an hour, something the time that you need to make the transaction. And then you do the transaction there and then. But obviously, it's always going to be based, I imagine. I mean, I don't know, I haven't looked into it, but generally for other systems like this, is always based on a conversion rate at one moment in time. And then, and then you can pay using Bitcoin, but obviously using that kind of conversion rate. So that's the way it normally works. It's still a conversion at some stage because you pay with your preferred system, but then the person on the other side or the institution receives what they want to receive. So at some stage there's a payment processor that converts the Bitcoin into Swiss francs for the payment.
English pounds every month, but I'm sure it costs Genius U a slightly different amount of Singapore dollars every month when they come to pay it. I suppose it's only the same sort of thing, really, isn't it? And but what would interest me more would be that if you were the Swiss, tax man or anybody else receiving payment in cryptos at the moment, you would, especially in large amounts, you'd surely want to have hedging strategies of your own. Because the same thing really would apply to you, wouldn't it? You can sort of predict what your tax income is going to be over the course of the next year. But if you're storing it in cryptos, then I suppose they'd have to have an investment strategy of their own to cope with that, wouldn't they? And that goes back to who covers the fluctuation. At the point of payment, you do, don't you?
Yeah, no. At the moment, I mean, most councils will not store cryptos, so they just convert it. So they just to have allow for that fluctuation for the time it takes to make the transaction, which is those 20-30 minutes, and you do it generally by using spread. So instead of being the market price, you might give a price as 2 or 3% different from the market price, and so on. So this is generally what you do when you go and get your foreign currency exchange, and they tell you, oh, this is commission free. Well, it's not commission free because you pay, I don't know, $1.20 if you're selling, but it's only worth $1.10 if you're buying. So that spread is really the price of the transaction. And generally this is how they cover fluctuations in price.
So if you're a Swiss taxpayer, you pay in the dip. If you can, I guess that's how you try and win from fluctuations, isn't it? Pay when you get more for your money.
If you could time me, that would be great. If you could time me right. Yeah, agreed.
On the other hand, I suppose it goes both ways, because it might create a situation where people are willingly paying their tax early because they think it's a good time to pay and get a good conversion for their cryptos. Who knows?
Well, generally, this is the opposite. This is the opposite of what Michael Saylor is doing. because he's saying, why would anybody sell early? Because you basically anticipate your tax liability. So if you keep Bitcoin for 10 years and then you sell it after 10 years, you only pay tax at that time. You sell it now, you're paying tax 10 years before you need to. So yeah, those are the kind of like decisions that need to be taken. Obviously, that needs to be taken into consideration, because yeah, if you're thinking about it over 1 year, it won't make that much difference. But if that 20%, for example, that we need to pay here in the UK for capital gains, you compound that over 10 years, and the result will be huge.
Absolutely. So, isn't this a great example of how, whether we like it or not, there's a high possibility that within our lifetimes we're going to be deeply involved with cryptos, whether we choose not to invest or whatever. But it's likely, if the Swiss are doing it, that at some time for the rest of us, we might have to consider whether we'd be better off paying our taxes in cryptos and when we would pay them, and whether it's worth paying them now or in 10 years' time. I think I know which one I like the sound of anyway. But
even in the US. Even in the US, there are some states now that allow you to pay your tax in crypto. I know I think it's Colorado was one of those, and I think Wyoming is another one. So it's already, even the US is very much against crypto at the moment. There are some states that are already allowing this, and Texas. I don't know if it's already happened in Texas, but they are, the senator there is very pro crypto, Ted Cruz as well. So.
Also, the easier they make it for people to pay taxes, especially capital gains, for example, or whatever it is, on in their state, on their crypto investments, then surely that lowers the chance that people will end up evading or trying to evade paying it. I mean, if you can quite simply take a little bit out of your wallet and do your civic duty, rather than having to jump through 1,000 hoops, then surely there are people out there that, I don't know. Maybe I just think too well of general society.
I think, yeah, for the majority, you might be speaking for the majority. There are always people that will look for ways of not paying tax. I suppose, and this is why there's a lot of cryptocurrencies, kind of the secret cryptocurrencies, the ones that don't give you a chance of tracing, the payment trail. That will always have a place. The Moneros of this world, that will always have a place in cryptocurrency, because the people that value that above all else, for one reason.
I know what you mean. It was a bit silly what I said. It's not like all the tax fugitives are all of a sudden going to go, oh, we can pay in Bitcoin, so we might as well give it them.
Exactly.
Oh, well, somebody has to be to your straight man on these calls.
Oh, by the way, it's one thing. This was I didn't actually. I forgot to bring the article up. I earmarked it, but then I didn't show you. They just there's several now different lending solutions that are appearing in the crypto world. One that's quite interesting, and there is some, Jonathan will know there are some within the Cardano, ecosystem as well. But there's one in the Ethereum world where you kind of like self-repaying mortgages, in a way where you, in the end, so you pay, you get your mortgage. Then what the company does that has your mortgage will refinance it, and it will then invest the funds in DeFi. So they will give you a rebate on your mortgage payment. So in the end, what you pay every month, part of your loan is repaid every month, and also you pay as an amount less than you would pay for a rental. So it's quite big, and the actual thing about for this particular project is that you only need to pay 2% as a down payment, as a deposit on your mortgage. So it's quite, it's quite interesting as a concept. So you pay 2%, and then, even if you don't have a lot of money, but you are renting somewhere, you can actually save money on your rent and own your house as well at the same time. So how's that as an improvement on our financial system?
Wow.
Right?
That's amazing.
Guys, I'm going to have to jump onto another call in a minute. Before we go,
Yeah.
it might not apply specifically to you guys because you've been around, I think, most of you quite a while, and you're one of Luca's communities, I think, at least nearly all of you. But Luca's got a 6-hour crypto crash course a week on Saturday at the very reasonable rate of $270. So if you want any more information about that, get in touch. As I say, it might not apply to all of you, but coming up to Christmas, there may be people in your, your close circle, family, friends, community, who you might think, well, this is a great opportunity for you to get up to speed and start 2022 on the right foot. So, excuse me for mentioning that, but I didn't want you to.
Thank you, Duncan. What is going to be right to explain? Obviously, the people that are already in my community, they already know all this. Already have gone through the micro school. So this is kind of like a condensed version of the micro school that we ran earlier on in the year over a week. It's going to be all in one day. So people that want to know, it is mainly for beginners that want to set up their account. They want to understand, how to operate a crypto account, how to value cryptocurrencies, how to plan their own investment. This is what it will take you from not knowing how to do anything to knowing how to set your account up. Obviously, there is going to be some homework that you need to do because you need to set up these accounts yourself, but you're going to have all the instructions to do it from beginning to end. And for those of you, obviously, the people that are already in my group are welcome to, they can attend for free. And if you have, if you're already in my group and have somebody else that you would like to introduce and do the course, then send me a message, and we give you a voucher for them to, to get a discount as well. Okay, so yeah, it's a really interesting time. So I think as the world is speeding up, let's also speed up and take advantage of this, because there's a lot going on, and a lot of ways that we can participate into this new economy. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm not just chilling here and selling you my stuff, but I'm just encouraging you to get involved, whether it's with me or with somebody else. It doesn't really matter. But just don't wait, because this stuff will not wait for you. Okay, just this. All right.
When is the call, Luca?
And it's going to be next Saturday, the 18th. Okay.
Thank you.
It's going to be an all-day event, so it's going to be quite intense, but it will cover everything we need to cover to go from zero to being able to start having your own cryptocurrency portfolio.
We'll drop details into Luca's circle on Monday. And if you're not a member of Luca's community on Genius U, I'm just going to quickly drop it into the chat before we go. It's Crypto Investor Club, so you can find it. And we'll drop details in there, and I'll probably put it as an event. So if you're a member of that circle, you'll get a notification. Thanks to everybody for being here, and especially thanks to you, Luca, as ever.
Okay, and thank you very much for everybody that turned up. Dana, I don't know if you want to get in touch with me. If you needed some help, I'm happy to do it now, or we can do it another date. Okay.
I did send you an email, and I'm about to go into a medical appointment now, so I can't do it now. But I did send you an email with some times.
Okay, I'll have a look at it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. Yes. Bye-bye.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone, and I'll see you again next week.